Broadcast is live. Oh boy.
We are here. Welcome to TCG Global, American Legionnaire, everybody. It's the 4th of October, 2022, and all hell's breaking loose in Ukraine, or at least the media wants you to think so. So we're going to go ahead and begin this with Intrepid. He's going to do an intro for us, and then I'll be back on here shortly after he's done.
All righty, Abraham. Well, thanks for joining.
I should mention. I probably should mention this is going to be a recorded show because it's so late, so everybody will be able to catch it tomorrow as well.
Good. I didn't even know that. It's a lot of things I don't know. Anyways, thanks for joining us, everybody. Tonight I guess my topic would be what happened to your mind. I don't know whether to cry or laugh anymore at this stuff. And I'm going to approach this kind of an odd way. When I was a kid, who am I kidding? Even today, I love watching cartoons. I've always enjoyed cartoons. I grew up with them. And, one of the things I found that was always intriguing about cartoons is you realize that it was entertaining, but it wasn't real. It wasn't reality. I mean, rabbits can't talk. Rabbits can't engage in conversations, whether it's rabbit season or duck season with Daffy Duck. Rabbits can't have a feud with Elmer Fudd. Rabbits can't really fly airplanes. I guess they always seem to get lost trying to find Pismo Beach. And I will be perfectly honest, pretty much everything I know about opera came from a transgendered rabbit. But the reality is, it was entertaining. You knew that stuff wasn't real. And for that reason, it was fun to watch. But today, oh my God, what is reality? Men can get pregnant. Women are men. Men can swim in the women's swimming team. Peaceful protest means burning down your cities. It's almost as if we live in a cartoon world. And that's about the only thing that makes sense anymore. We have a potato for the president. We have a complete moron for our vice president. Everywhere you look, you're getting disinformation, misinformation, wrong information. Everything is quickening, getting faster and faster. And it's maddening. It's driving people literally into madness and insanity. And as Abraham has mentioned many times, liberalism is in fact a mental illness. So how do we cope with all this stuff? I mean, everywhere you look, the world is falling apart, and I do think it's by design. I don't think anything really happens in government by accident. Yeah, there are a bunch of morons that run this government. And even scarier are all the unelected bureaucrats that really run the government. But the more and more I look at this cartoon world of ours and the evidence, there is this thing called the deep state. And we are at war with this. And it is a war, good versus evil. Otherwise, I just don't know how you would logically or rationally look at all the things that are going on. We have a world economy that's failing. We have a world food distribution system and farming that's failing. We have the potential of wars all over the world. I mean, it's people's lives are an absolute misery. Nobody lives anymore. They just exist paycheck to paycheck. It's a disaster. It's a total disaster. And I'm not really sure what to do except, as we've spoken about many times, go out and live and make this other stuff irrelevant. Be outspoken. Don't put up with all this crap that they try to shame you into believing. Again, men can't get pregnant. Sorry, it's just a biological fact. And yes, I guess I need to put in the disclaimer that I am not a biologist, but I just know this thing. Men should not be swimming on the women's swim team. Women, you're not men. boy, oh boy, you look at you know, to me, this entire women's liberation movement has been a total failure. And I'm not saying that out of frustration or anger, but God, you look at where it's headed and where it is right now, the trajectory of this thing. Yeah. Woman of the year is a guy going, wow, that really worked. So everything that we think we know, our reality is skewed. It's distorted. It's pretty much just insanity. The world has gone freaking insane. Again, we live in a cartoon world. We have cartoon characters that run our government. And to the extent that we believe and follow the government, we're no better. You know, what we try to do here is give people an understanding of what is really happening, hopefully, with the next understanding that you use your grain matter in your brain to actually think and make your own conclusions. But at the end of the day, I think your survival, and that's not just physical survival, but emotional survival as well, is just going to come down to family, friends, small communities of like minded people. And as we've discussed in the past, your three great relationships, as I call them, how you relate to yourself as a unique person with an ultimate dignity that cannot be taken away due to the fact that you are alive, you exist, God put you on this planet, how you deal with other people, and how you deal with your God, your creator as well. Those things are part of your nature as a human person. All this other stuff is just a distraction. And it's happening so fast, especially now with the miracle of the internet. It's all a distraction, people. It's all a distraction. You know, I used to always be intrigued by shell games when I was a kid. Gee, where's the marble under which shell, number 1, 2, or 3? This is a tremendous shell game that's being played right now, and we just need to be aware that it is a game, that we are being manipulated, that we do live in a cartoon universe right now where up is down and left is right. Nothing makes sense. Words don't have any meaning anymore. And of course, with words not having any meaning, logical thought is not possible. You know, we hear all these buzz phrases on the social media platforms that we think that we have to accept because social media says we have to. Like, gee, the science is settled. Boy, that's not science as I was taught when I was in high school and college. Science is never settled. You look at all the crap that's coming out now with the vax and COVID. Oh, I don't even know if I could say that. It's probably going to get thrown off. I mean, everything that we were told in the last few years is a lie. It goes counter to reality. It goes counter to our experiences. It goes counter to our humanity. It's designed to pull us apart and get us to react. And that's the one thing, of course, that we cannot do. We can't react. We can't just blow our cool, start to explode. The people in charge are leaders. What a joke there, because they should be our elected officials. They want us to react. They know how to deal with a straight on battle, but we can't do that. You know, again, passive resistance, fine. You don't have to run real fast when they tell you to run. You don't certainly have to jump when they tell you to jump. You just sit there and look at them and smile and think, what happened to your mind? Where did it go? You know, it's unfortunately, until we do that, it's not going to get any better. I'm sure Abraham will talk a little bit more about Russia, Ukraine. Again, as I've said in the past, I don't think Putin's the devil. I don't think Zelensky's an altar boy. In fact, I think Putin is probably doing right more against this madness that's now saturating our planet than our own President Potato. He seems to, well, he's an idiot anyways. So to that end, I almost have some respect for Putin, going, wow, at least somebody's standing up against all this craziness. But we need to be aware that we're being manipulated. be aware that the world is just gone bloody insane. That's about all I could say. Everything that you think that you knew, everybody's trying to tell you, nope, it's different. Yes, rabbits can speak. Rabbits can fly airplanes. It's like, no, they actually can't. But that's what you're being taught to believe. Again, what happened to your mind? You have a mind, use it. The crap that's going on right now is it's just out of control. And as I said, how do you react to that? Well, I guess you have only three options. Option one is to go with it, become part of the deep state, just like all these crazy leftists, and yes, agree that men can get pregnant and up is down and left is right. Or option two, you can fight it. Good luck with that. The government's got all the resources in the world to prevent people like you from fighting them directly. Or option three, you could just go live your own life. Make these idiots irrelevant to your life to the extent that you can. Resist at every chance you get a passive resistance, but go and enjoy your life. Spend time with your friends and your family. Explore, adventure, learn new things, treat people the way you want to be treated. Back to Russia, Ukraine, I'm kind of surprised that that's happening. I've not been to Ukraine. I have been in Russia, and I actually enjoyed Russia. Heck, I still remember my first translator, Natalia Getmanova from St. Petersburg. Wonderful woman. I have no ill will against the Russians, but of course now we're beating the drums of war, just like the Mark Twain poem that if you haven't read it, you should. It's called The War Poem, I believe is the name of it. And yeah, fantastic. We're getting whipped up into a frenzy over what? In fact, I think every war the U.S. has been in, save perhaps World War II, after it started, we tend to look back and go, God, what the heck did we do that for? After all these kids are killed or disabled. And of course, they come back to this country with we support the troops. They never support anything. You're just cannon fodder, unfortunately. Heck is, and Abraham knew. I had a friend of mine who was a medal, a Purple Heart winner in the, what was it? The Chugan Reservoir battle in Korea. Wanted to go to the Reno air races one day to see them. Couldn't get anybody to help him get in. Guy's 92 years old, and everybody, all these, we support our troops, couldn't help a 92-year-old Marine. They're too busy. I lost a lot of respect for a lot of my military brothers on that day, going, wow, you guys are, you spew all kind of stuff, but when it comes down to it, you just don't do what you say. You live in a cartoon world. That's about all I can say. So I don't know what Abraham's going to talk about tonight. Again, we've got problems everywhere. No, I don't think that North Korea is going to be a major problem. I don't think that China will allow that. China's got some major problems of their own. Their economy is collapsing. Of course, so is Europe and England. I don't think that Russia will do a tactical nuclear strike. I think Putin wants to win this. And if he were to drop nukes, I think, he'd have the response and the ire of the world. I do think that we are probably, if not past recession, going into a depression. I think people need to wake up and start stockpiling different things, get ready, water, food, clothing, shelter, community, because we're going into a winter shitstorm and nobody seems to care. Right now everybody's pegging their hopes on the Republicans taking the House in 35 days or whatever it is. I don't even know if that's true. The way the voting is, so manipulated. I don't know if you can count on anything anymore. But what you can count on is what reality is. You know what's right. You know what's wrong. You know what's moral. You know what's immoral. You know how to live correctly, how to deal with family and friends. And you just need to stick with that. That's your gut. That's your DNA. God is imprinted in your DNA. Go with your gut and forget all this craziness. We do not, in fact, live in a cartoon world. There is a reality that we cannot divorce ourselves from. So, at any rate, again, what's happened to their minds? So, I see Abraham might be back, probably having his hamburger with peanut butter and jalapeno peppers. I don't know how you can eat that stuff, boy. So,
Not tonight.
anyway.
No jalapeno hamburger, peanut butter, mayonnaise, and ghost pepper cheese. Not tonight.
Oh my God.
Oh man, I can't make it hot enough. I even had scorpion sauce, but it's hard to be in the same room as when that's cooking.
I guess melts the
So I'm going
paint.
to do a favor. I'm going to start off by doing a favor for a friend of mine tonight. Anybody out there can access or find or look for or happens to see any sriracha sauce. That's the Asian hot sauce. Let me know. Get a hold of me. Send me a text, an email, smoke signals, using a blanket and a campfire, whatever you need to do to let me know. I'll send you some cash, and you guys can stock me up on some sriracha for somebody that I have in my little circle here, and that'd be awesome because sriracha sauce and the peppers are becoming a antiquity very quickly. So everybody, you got good sound on me there.
Oh yeah.
Intrepid,
I hear you
okay.
loud and clear.
So we got a lot to cover tonight, folks, and I think where I'm going to start, those that are following us in the Discord channel are well aware of the solar activity that's occurring.
Oh,
and
gosh.
I kind of gave a little bit of my analysis on that. And I'm going to go a little bit more in depth with you guys here in the Sitrep so that you have more of a breakdown and explanation, and it'll be less scientific and more layman's terms so that we can all understand it better. Even some of that stuff's hard for me to comprehend at times because it's very, very data driven. The language is different. It's for those super smart engineers and astrophysicist types. And I didn't go to that school, so I went to the school of hard luck and plain English. So I'm going to go into the solar activity information real quick. So there is Suspicious Observer. It's a YouTube channel. I want folks that are in here watching and monitoring our sit reps. I want you to go check them out. The gentleman's name and exactly what his background is or where he got his knowledge, I'll let him explain that. That's not my place. But the guy is super smart and he keeps proving NASA wrong. Not so much as NASA being proved wrong strictly on data and the science and the astrophysics involved with solar and space weather. What he's nailing them on is the political side mostly, where NASA comes out and publishes these papers to the public, the general public, and a lot of that is being overly influenced or intentionally influenced on a political basis. In other words, if the science doesn't match with the global warming data that they're trying to push to convince everybody that the end of the world is going to come because of solar activity and not potatoes in the White House, they're going to put NASA to change their science or the language, even just some words. They're going to change it to make it fit that administration's perception of what's happening with our space weather. For those that are wondering why space weather is such a concern or why it's something that we should all pay attention to, it's real simple. What's going on in space affects our planet. And what affects our planet, our magnetic field, everything to do with the core of the Earth versus the rotation or and the evolution of the moon around us, which creates our gravity, creates our tides in the ocean, to our sun, and how the sun affects us when the sun has solar flares, coronal mass ejections, otherwise known as CMEs, and in the sun, in an X-class solar flare will push out large masses of radiation towards our planet. This happens not all the time, but it happens enough. And a lot of people just you don't get that education in school anymore. Unfortunately, we wish we did, but they don't teach it in school. They're too busy teaching, which bathroom to be confused about using. So, where I want to go with this is the health aspects, our health. Those with heart conditions, those with their like arthritis, will notice when there's a change in weather. You'll also notice when the weather's great, the weather's fine. There's no storms moving through. There's no cold or warm fronts that are coming in that are affecting. Why am I so sore today? And the weather's great. I don't understand why. I can't really put it together. And it took me a long time to realize something else was going on. And what is going on is the sun. Our solar activity in the cycle that it's going through right now, the 11,000 year cycle, which is one of the more dangerous cycles that it can go through. The sun is ejecting coronal mass ejections at a faster and more periodic rate than it has in the past, at least in our lifetimes. We are seeing a decrease in the Florida hurricane severity, even though we had what was technically a category 5, I believe it was off maybe 2 to 4 miles per hour, and they classed that by the wind speed, the sustained wind speed, meaning the continuous wind speed from a storm. Category 5 is what hit Florida. But even with the damage that it did, and even with the regularity of these storms that are happening, the globalists will have you believe it's global warming, and that the hurricanes are at the worst they've ever been. They're more dangerous and more destructive. They happen more often. And for people who don't actually take the time to go study what's going on and read the graphs, read the statistics on these storms over a long period of time, the last 100 years, we're actually seeing a decrease in severity. We're seeing a decrease in occurrences. Now, granted, it seems like we have a lot more tropical depressions that turn into tropical, going from a depression to an actual storm, which is all part of the category measurement scale. These storms are not turning into hurricanes. They're turning into depressions, and then they're dying out. So we're actually seeing less activity and a less frequency of hurricanes hitting our coastline or affecting the Caribbean, for example. There's a lot of activity off the coast of Africa right now as we speak. And what that is, that's right around the equator. What we're seeing is a reaction of our weather to solar activity. We had, I believe, 3 M-class flares last week into this week, and we just experienced an X-class flare that either yesterday or the day before, I believe it was the day before yesterday, we experienced an S-class flare. These flare events are directly related to what's going on with our weather here on Earth, especially in our oceans. Our magnetic field is weakening. We all know that. We've been told that. Even the global warming people have admitted that, yes, our magnetic field is weakening. We're going through what may be realized a solar or what we call a magnetic pole flip. I hate to use the word flip, but a reversal, where our poles are going to reverse, and where they land, we don't know. They could be in India. North Pole could be India, and the South Pole could be, or not Australia, but South America somewhere. We don't know. But what we do know is there's been a large movement in Earth's magnetic pole. Now you have what is true north, which is the center of the Arctic and the Antarctic, which shows on a map as our north and south poles. But our magnetic North Pole and our magnetic South Pole are actually not even near that. Our magnetic North Pole is over Greenland right now. It's been moving further and further and further south over the last several years. Solar weather, these CMEs, these solar winds that come off our sun, and these flare events affect our health. And that's what I want to focus on for a few minutes. If you have a heart condition, you're going to know it. If you have arthritis, the weather is fine, but you still having like a almost an arrhythmic attack in your bones and your cartilages, and you can feel it. If you work out at a gym like I do, and you overwork out a couple of days in a row, and you really push yourself hard, and you come home and you take your supplements to try to do your recovery quicker and pouring on the protein, and then all of a sudden you have 2, 3, 4 days in a row of absolute fatigue overtaking you. Maybe headaches come on. Your muscles don't seem like they're recovering as fast as they usually do. I started studying this a few years ago, and I noticed that the solar weather had every bit to do with that recovery time when I'm working out in the gym. Yesterday would have been a disaster of a day to go to the gym and work out. Today, not so much. And I went today and I feel great. Tomorrow, we're expecting more weather, more space weather. We're going to be actually in the next 24 to 48 hours, we're going to be taking that radiation blast from the sun from this X-class flare. And that's going to affect, personally, me, that's going to affect my fatigue. It's going to make me feel very low energy tomorrow. It may bring on a headache. It may bring on some muscle discomfort, joint discomfort. And with me, I may also feel like I'm going through the day, like I'm feeling like every couple hours I'm going to have a heart attack. My blood pressure will spike and then it'll drop back to normal. Then it'll spike again and drop back to normal. And this is me sitting at a desk on a computer working and not actually out doing physical activities or exerting myself at work. And that comes and goes. It comes in waves. And while that's occurring, what I've been doing is I've been watching the grid, all the data that I put over there for you guys on Discord. I started watching the graphs. I started studying the satellite, the GOES satellite, which monitors the sun. And and all that data is pouring in. I'm looking at these and I'm saying, well, right now we're taking a CME hit and I feel like crap. 6-8 hours later, I feel great. The CME is past us. The solar wind, so to speak, is past us. I feel great. So I'm watching it and I'm going, other than the inclement weather that occurs locally where I'm at, snowstorms, heat waves, anything that's drastic in the weather, I know how that affects me and it's different. This doesn't feel like that. It feels completely different. So those with heart conditions, arthritis, joint pain, even intestinal disabilities, those out there that have intestinal issues, digestive issues, those out there that have medications that they take regularly for mental health purposes, you're going to notice these, you're going to feel it. You're going to notice these changes. It's your inner magnetic field of reacting to the environment around you, reacting to space weather, reacting to the earth magnetic field, reacting to any kind of disturbance in the core of the earth. Earthquake and volcanic activity is also affected by this. Those that follow suspicious observers know that the guys that are following the space weather are closely monitoring the tectonic plate movement and the volcanic activity certain times a day, or when the sun's facing that side of the planet, certain times of the week or month when we have these major solar events like this X-class flare. And then, of course, it also affects not just mental health, physical health, the magnetic field weakening around the earth, making us vulnerable to more radiation and solar wind attack on the planet. It also affects radio and communication signals. So those that are preparing, those that are getting their go bag together, those that are putting together their network in their community will notice that you're having issues with your radios. If you're happen to be out using your radio, which I hope you are, actually actively using your radio to communicate with your neighbors and your friends so that you guys are on the same page and you're comfortable with using those radios. Right now, if you try to use your radio, you're going to be fine. But yesterday, you would have been in the dark during that event, that solar storm. It plays hell on shortwave radio, and what that is atmospheric signal bouncing. And that's what I do with a shortwave citizen band radio, for example, with what I call a power tower. It's a 30-foot tower. I don't have it currently, but I used to, and I'm going to build a new one. But this is a radio tower that's hooked up to a CB using shortwave radio band to communicate. If you do it right, it's legal. If you do it wrong, it's illegal. So make sure you know the law before you start experimenting with radio communication. You don't want to pirate a frequency and get caught and get in trouble. So disclaimer there. But I'm able to bounce my signal using a I almost can't. I have these brain farts during these storms too, guys. What I have is a linear module. I'm just going to call it a module for now. But this linear allows my signal to be amplified by 3,000 watts. So I'm taking a regular 5 to 8 watt CB antenna off the shelf with a 5 watt CB radio off the shelf. And I'm multiplying that by 3,000. And then I have what's called a kicker attached to my linear. And that kicker allows me to amplify that 3,000 for whatever frequency band that I choose to use. and I can send that signal out by keying up on the mic and bounce it off the atmosphere. And my signal may go all the way around the planet. Always travels east to west. I can bounce that signal, and people in Australia can hear and talk to me, and I can talk to them if the atmospherics are cooperating. What a solar storm will do is it will create a cloud, almost like preventing that atmospheric bounce to happen. In other times, right after, for example, a CME, a coronal mass ejection, just a few days right after a major event, we're able to amplify without even using all the kicker and the linear amplifier and anything else. We can actually take our signal and bounce it just off of 5 or 6 or 7 watts, which is very small in the radio world for power that we're pushing through an antenna to push our signal out. In other words, when we key up in voice, when we're speaking, we're able to speak at a further distance. You don't need to learn all that stuff to operate a radio, a ham radio, but it's not something that you don't want to pay attention to. So if you know there's going to be solar activity and you're following suspicious observers and you're seeing the alerts go up on the different websites that talk about it, Mr. MBB333 is another great source on YouTube. If you're watching these guys and they're talking about these solar events, and you go and you zero in on your radio frequency where you're at in relation to the storm, if the storm's occurring on the other side of the planet, it's not going to affect you as much in the dark. But if it's the middle of the daytime, 12, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and we're having a storm and it's actively pounding the earth right now, that's a good time to get your radio out and experiment with it. See what it's doing or what it's not doing. See if you can talk a mile down the road or 20 miles down the road. So those of you that have your communities, your support teams in your communities, start working on your radios during these storms so that you know what to expect. When the internet goes away and there's no more internet, no more communication, and we're not able to tell you, hey, there's a solar storm happening right now. Say the grid goes down. Boom. The data centers disappear. There's no more internet. You can't just get on, click on, log on, and look and say, oh, we're having a solar event. That's why my radio crapped out. Don't mistake that for thinking that your radio is bad and toss it and hope to get a new radio. So familiarize yourself with what happens with your radio signal when you're trying to communicate during a storm. That's predictive behavior. That's something that you can do now to prepare for the time when there is no internet and no way to really tell. For those that are in the dark where it concerns radios, you can get a cheap $50 shortwave radio off of Amazon. I believe there's still some out there that you can order. Be sure to order what Amazon has in stock. Don't order something from China because you won't see it for 6 months. But make sure you get one of those little cheap $50 radios, shortwave radios, and monitor the shortwave. Listen to all the different radio stations around the world. Shortwave is a beautiful thing. It allows you to listen to Europe or Asia. And if you start having interference on your shortwave, that's another telltale sign that you're having issues with the solar event. Well, that's why your signal's not coming in. So a shortwave radio, a cheap $50 shortwave radio is an awesome way to experience radio signal interruption and interference without having to actually work the radios for those that are not real familiar with radio tech. I'm not a tech guy. I'm not a radio guy. I do know how to get my communication basics and be able to talk to somebody over a hill or around a hill or a tree or a building or somewhere in an urban area. I know how to do that. I know how to triangulate. I know the basics of how a radio works. For those that really want to learn a lot more about it, to be better prepared, get your ham license, go take the class, study for the test. And once you do that, continue going to classes or taking the online classes and using the YouTube guys that do radio. They explain a lot of this. And start studying, start learning. It'll help you a lot. Forgive me, my mic. I had to move my mic here, guys. So real quick, I want to go into some things that I have on my notes here that Intrepid also kind of briefly touched on in his monologue. Unelected officials in the deep state. He mentioned that. And what that really boils down to, not to dumb it down for everybody, but what that boils down to is a mirrored government that hides behind the screen of those that we have on TV every day, like Pelosi and Chuck Schumer, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and all these other people that are in leadership positions. These people, they like to think of themselves as people of power, people in a high position, people that are in charge. When in reality, if they cross certain lines and they do certain things that are not okay or uh, not approved by the deep state, so to speak. And what I mean by deep state is those that work behind the scenes. They'll be off. These people will be taken out. They'll be removed one way or the other, whether they have a accidental plane crash or a car accident. We just had a congresswoman that had a vehicle accident just recently. Or they'll just remove them by getting them officially out. Maybe they'll make up some kind of criminal charge, or let's put child pornography on their phone or in their computer, and then let's go get them arrested, and that way they're out of the way. They're no longer a problem. We can get them moved out of the way, put somebody in there that follows orders better. To think that the deep state doesn't exist is foolish. It's existed for decades. I'm not going to try to narrow down exactly when it began and became an issue, but I would suspect around the time that aliens came to be in the deserts of New Mexico, and from that point on, it only grew deeper and deeper and deeper and became a thing. Unelected officials are people that you don't know about that are behind the scenes. Right now, that would be Hillary Clinton. She's an unelected official. She's still very much involved day to day what's going on. Barack Hussein Obama is very much involved with the day-to-day going-ons with our Department of Defense, Department of State, national security structure. He's very much involved, but he's an unelected official at this point. There are others who are not known. Those that we call black hats. Also, black swans is another term that's been recently started being used. Black swans. These people work behind the scenes. They're not known. They're not known to anyone. No one except those in government know who these people are. These people run what we call black bag operations, black projects, black book projects. And these are off the books funding for projects like that occur at Area 51 or the Bay Area or down in LA for some of the space program, top secret stuff that goes on. Those are the unelected officials that literally have an unlimited amount of money to do what they need to do. These people are also surrounded by the best security personnel in the world. These people are highly protected. They pay enough money that they can do anything, breaking the law and doing treasonous things against our country. And yet they're still in power and they're protected. And there are men with weapons, guns, if you want to say that. YouTube might get mad at me. There are people that surround these people that protect them. And these people are able to hire other people that came from certain backgrounds that have knowledge and expertise in crime scenes, criminal investigations, black bag operations, for example, when they call it wet work, or whatever you want to call it, spook work, when they go take out and assassinate people. They know how to do it quietly. These people have gone through the schoolhouse, so to speak, and they've learned these skills, and they can make anybody go away. They can make anybody disappear. I don't live my life, even as a white hat, even as somebody that's come out and has started openly to the public, coming out and resisting what's happening and fighting back in my own way. And there's a lot of things that I don't discuss that people don't see that are happening behind the scenes here. But I don't live my life every day worried that somebody's going to come through my door and they're going to take me out. There are a lot of white hats out there. There are white hats that are actively working inside this administration. Hopefully they have the pull and the power and the ability to pull the plug before certain buttons get pushed. Obviously, the white hats weren't in a position to prevent the Nord Stream 1 and 2 from being attacked by our government and being ordered by Biden. There's going to be a lot of people out there that say that's speculation. You don't have any data or facts to back that up. You're guessing. You're playing games. Don't do that. I promise you, what we're looking at right now, we're expecting a retaliatory attack by Russia if it was, in fact, us. And that will cement our belief that we were involved in that. It might not have been our vessel, might not have even been our operators. It might not have been anybody directly connected to the United States and the CIA or the military or NSA or anyone else. But what if it's one of our allies? And what if we funded the project? What if we are the ones that made the operation possible? That still implicates the United States' involvement in Nord Stream. Never in my life did I believe, long time ago anyway, that I would come out and say our government is guilty of this, at least in the beginning, and this being such a young operation that only occurred a week ago, guys, a week. But with all the data that's coming out and with great guys like Skyglass and these others that have come forward with their information and presented it for others to put it out to the community, we're right now ready. I mean, we're already doing it. It's not that we're ready to do it. We're doing it. We're pointing our finger at Washington, D.C. and going, you did this. You did this. The problem here is, besides the fact that we're waiting for a retaliatory strike, and if that occurs, that'll cement what we believe. But we're not hearing any pushback from Washington. Instead of Washington, D.C. coming out and saying it was not the United States, this is who we believe it is, and coming up with actual data to provide to us, the American people, to say, look, we had no part of this Nord Stream attack. We believe it was so-and-so, and this is what the information we have to provide us the evidence we need to say that. They're not. They're deflecting. And anytime you're deflected when you ask questions, if you're a media personality or reporter and you're asking straight up, flat out, plain spoken English, was the United States involved in this? And they change the subject and deflect, and they're not being honest. They could come out and flat out say, no, we did not have anything to do with this, but they're not doing that. That's Washington, D.C.'s way of poking Putin in the eye, saying, yeah, we more than likely has something to do with it. What are you going to do about it? So there's a lot of things that occur in the State Department. There's a lot of communication back and forth. My understanding is right now we're not communicating with Russia. Russia is communicating with Biden's communicating with Putin through media appearances, speeches, text, if not even text, but tweets. And that's not diplomacy, folks. That's not diplomacy. That's not going to prevent a war. And it is my personal opinion and my feeling that Biden wants a war. This guy wants to be a dictator. He already thinks he's the most popular president in American history. The guy lies. Every other word out of his mouth's a lie. The guy's convinced himself that he's the best thing since chocolate pudding. That everybody in America, more than half the majority of this country, believes and trusts and voted and likes and loves and is loyal to his presidency, which is not a fact. It's bullshit. We all know it. So for this guy to come out of the chute, so to speak, using rodeo terminology here, for this guy to ride a bull out of the chute with wanting to be a wartime president, I'm going to put my money on that Biden wants a war. Ukraine is not a war that we're directly involved in. That's not enough of a war for somebody with the ego this guy has. What scares me the most is that we have Joint Chiefs of Staff and we have people in positions in Congress and the Senate that could shut this down tomorrow, remove this guy from the White House. If it took arresting him and handcuffing him and hauling him out the front door. They threatened to do that with Trump. They never did, but they threatened to do it. But we have people there that can stop this tomorrow and prevent a nuclear war. And that's what we all want. We want this not to go nuclear. You'd have to be out of your freaking mind to want a nuclear war. And I deal with this every day. Not only the data that I come across and I analyze and the information that's coming in, but I'm preparing every day. I'm putting together my network where I'm at. I'm working on the communications aspect. I'm screening people constantly, looking at who's an asset, who's a liability, and I'm building what I have to build in order to survive if this goes nuclear. Now, truth be told, no one's going to be healthy, and no one's going to be happy, and no one's going to be living a good life if this thing goes nuclear. China is interested in, as it has invested in this not going nuclear. China does not want a nuclear war. I think Intrepid mentioned that a little while ago. China's heavily invested in this not going nuclear. They would like to see the United States come under Chinese power. We have too many minerals, too much value as a nation in our geological location in the world. We have too much that China can benefit from. If it goes nuclear, no one benefits, and China doesn't benefit. And I see the friction between Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping because of that. There's nothing more in the world right now, I think, that Putin would love to do than drop a nuke out in downtown Kiev, Ukraine, the capital of Ukraine. I see that as a possibility more now than I have in the past. It's scary. How is NATO going to react to that? And that brings me to my next point. This is all part of the Sitrep, guys, so follow along with me. Zelensky submitted the advanced NATO membership application, and it's more than likely going to be voted pro, allowing Ukraine to join NATO. This is the one thing that Putin will not allow. This is the one thing that Russia does not want. They don't want Ukraine to become part of NATO. They don't want a NATO nation bumped up against their nation. They want that barrier there. This cushion of countries and states in between NATO on the west and Russia on the east. And if this thing goes through Zelensky and this NATO push and they become a NATO member state, that is the same thing as the West declaring war on Russia. And that's exactly how Putin's going to look at it. Now, whether Putin reacts to that immediately, we don't know. We don't know if he's going to react immediately and boom, here we go. Time to shelter in place, time to find where you need to be to avoid the fallout, so to speak. And I don't mean just nuclear fallout, but I mean fallout from everything. Somebody called me a little while ago while Intrepid was on and asked me, is there going to be any advance notice? You know, is there something that's going to let me know 48 hours to go pull my money out of the bank? And I thought about it, and I referred him to who I would think would be the best person to communicate with where that's concerned. But I do know that those following in the Discord, those following Monkey, those following Pastor Caddis, those following S2 Underground, and these other channels, these intelligence collectives, you're going to get a heads up. As much as we're able to bring it to everyone here, we're going to send the flag up. We're going to get on here. We're going to produce a sit rep. We're going to communicate with people that we know within the circles, and we're going to get that information out. Go get your money out of the bank right now. If I was to be honest with everyone here, and I have in the past with my personal finances, I don't keep money in the bank. I don't. I put just enough in there where I need to, the way that I bank, because I still use a bank, but I do it in a way that I can take care of my bills and buy and purchase what I need to without putting all my eggs in one basket. And me and Intrepid and others can kind of instruct you on how to do that if it's something that our community would like to learn more about and would like us to speak on. I'm not going to do that tonight. I'm going to move on from Zelensky and the NATO membership application that's been pushed, and I'm going to move into the Chinese vessel activity. I'm not going to put any maps up on the computer tonight, guys, because it's a lot of information, and that's just going to add to the confusion for some that are new here. But what I'm going to tell you is that we've been monitoring for the last almost 4 years now. This is going on almost 4 years. I was thinking about how long ago and the dates, and real quickly while we were setting up SitRep tonight, almost 4 years, shy about 2 months, that we monitored, watched, and verified Chinese naval vessel activity in Mexico. And of course, that goes along with Canada. And what's going on in Canada? Where are we at with the Chinese that they've already come out and admitted they allowed Chinese military units to come to Canada to do winter warfare training? Winter warfare training, China has their own winter battlefield climate to train in. They have that climate there. They could go to the Arctic to do winter warfare training. Why would they go to Canada? And then Canada finally admitted that, yes, they did allow these military units to come to Canada. They were spotted. It was running around the rumor mill. And people in the intelligence, the independent intelligence community verified they were there. As far as I'm concerned, the Prime Minister of Canada, Trudeau, Many call him Castro's son. I guess there's been some information and back and forth on him actually being directly related to Fidel Castro of Cuba and being his son. I can't verify that. I'm not going to get into the rumor mill or the conspiracy shit on that. But what I will say is Trudeau is very much loyal to China. Trudeau, the leader of Canada, is not okay with American independence and freedom, the Constitution and our Second Amendment and anything else. He doesn't even allow his own citizens the right to bear arms, has no interest in that. He's completely bought into the World Economic Forum. He's a graduate of that. He's absolutely on the global elitist list of people who want to be in power and be dictators. And the guy's no good. The guy's a real piece of the SO, he's the SOB. Let's put it that way. That's a concern. And unfortunately, my map earlier wouldn't populate, but I'm going to try to get that up before the end of the night here or tomorrow. And I'm going to try to check on the Chinese naval vessel activity in Mexico. I just kind of want to get eyes on it and count, see how many are down there. And that's just what we could see. There are many of them that we cannot see. You will not see North Korea's Navy moving around on any application that you look at. That's because they hide it. Russia does the same thing. Occasionally we'll see their aircraft or their vessel activity, but it's rare. That doesn't mean we can't find out. And that doesn't mean we don't have ways to see it. But some of that, that's obviously off the books. We can't really broadcast that information or put it out there. But we are watching, we are counting, we are watching the movement. We're studying the patterns because there is always a pattern involved when you're moving military equipment. And that's going to segue right into the Russia nuke rail movement that's occurring. And I'm going to kind of break that down real quick for everybody. There's obviously the conspiracy world and the Telegram channels are all mouthing off about how a train got attacked today in Russia. And it's the nuclear train. It's not the nuclear train. There was a train attack today. It did not occur in Russia. It occurred in Ukraine. And it was a train carrying a lot of armored vehicles and tanks. It was not a train carrying nuclear payload. Others have asked me, and it's come across the net as well, how do we know this train's carrying a nuclear payload headed to Ukraine from southern and northern or central, I would say central, Moscow area in Russia? How do we know these trains are heading there, and how do we know they're carrying a nuclear payload? Well, the reason we know that is these trains were built and designed and retrograde to be bulk enough to carry that weight. When you're moving nuclear anything, guys, that is a extremely heavy in weight. I'm speaking about weight, an extremely heavy load. There were pictures that supposedly were leaked, and these pictures are at one of our depots, our ammo depots here in the United States, where we keep a lot of our nuclear materials and weaponry underground at one of these bunkers. We call it a depot. And they only put 6 of these units on a flatbed trailer. And yesterday, along a lot of the social media and a lot of the other so-called news programming in YouTube and TikTok were speaking about how they can only move 6 at a time because this stuff's very unstable and dangerous. Let me add a little intelligence to that. Number one, it's not unstable. It's always risky to move anything nuclear, but the way that we design our nuclear payloads for our armaments, this stuff is very stable. They can move it around. You don't want to go throwing it on the ground, but it can be involved in a bomber crash or be dumped in the ocean and never detonate. Because there's certain things in these nuclear weapons that detonate them, and those things have to be activated. I'm not going to go into details, but what I'll say is they can put these 6 containers on a truck and move them from point A to point B, and there is minimal risk. The biggest risk to transporting nuclear payloads is security, making sure that there's not a surprise attack, so to speak, on the convoy. That's their biggest risk. Second biggest risk, obviously, is exposure to radioactive materials. And again, these structures that were moved on these trailers, they're fail-safes. Okay? One of these weapons is not just going to suddenly go boom. That doesn't happen. Not the way our technology works with our nuclear payloads. The reason they only moved 6 has nothing to do with, oh my God, they're so unstable and it's such a risky. No, there's nothing to do with that. It has to do with that trailer being a specific trailer, being moved on a Department of Defense or military-owned tractor trailer combination. The tractor also being built and designed a certain way to carry the weight. Plutonium is very heavy. Uranium is very heavy. It's like hauling around gold. It's a very, very heavy payload. These warheads are extremely heavy. They're not much bigger than my desk, but they weigh like about maybe equal to 400, 500, 600 desks. They're heavy, very, very heavy. So they're only going to move 6 at a time, or even 4 at a time. I've never seen them move 6, but I've seen 4 or 5 move. Then there's speculation. Well, why are we moving so much right now so fast? Well, first of all, we don't know where those pictures came from. Looking in the background of the photographs, I didn't see what I recognize to be the depots that I've been to, that I'm familiar with. So we don't know where these are at. We don't know where this payload was moved. We don't know if this was this week or 5 years ago, but there's no way to verify these photographs. A lot of people out there are going to tell you, oh, this is this week, and it was at this location. It was at Minot Air Force Base, B-52, strategic air base where our B-52s are. No, it was not. If we were moving nuclear payloads around our bases right now, Russia would be all over that shit. Trust me. We don't move. We don't fuel. We don't start to stage anything because they have their ways to tell when we do that. And we have our ways to tell when they do that. The only way we can hide that activity is on a submarine. And that's a for sure thing. We can hide our submarines in the ocean and we can start fueling and prepping for a launch and no one would have a clue as to what's going on. Land-based nuclear ICBMs don't work like that. When we start fueling, it's a process. When these ICBMs start to be fueled, that triggers satellites in space, everything, all the bells and whistles start ringing, and Russia's going, what in the fuck are you doing? We're going to fuel ours too. And if that happens, if that occurs, there's only one person in the world that can put a stop to it. Immediately shut it down and say, no more. We're done. We're not going to do this. I say one person and not two because I doubt Putin would. I doubt Putin would back down or be the first to try to prevent a nuclear war. It would be the president of the United States. And unfortunately, who we have in there right now, he's going to be busy getting his medication and his ass wiped when that happens. And we're probably going to be left with nobody standing there taking care of business, doing their job. And the people that will be there, unfortunately, are probably Kamala Harris, Nancy Pelosi, and General Mark Milley. And I don't want any of those three there in control of the nuclear arsenal of the United States, giving launch codes and pushing buttons. I don't want to see that. But that is our reality right now. There's word that Trump has offered to go over and try to broker, negotiate a deal between or some kind of peace between Ukraine and Russia, NATO and Russia, and try to get in the middle of this and try to prevent a nuclear war. I want to remind everybody before they start getting on Telegram and talking a bunch of mad nonsense, not you guys, not our community here, but others new here that will come here and get our information and take it, turn it in and twist it into something else. Trump no longer has a passport. The passport was surrendered and he has not had his passport returned to him. He's not leaving the United States. The FBI did that intentionally. They're trying to rein him in. I don't know if they're going to indict Donald Trump, but what I do know is they're going to prevent him from having any movement as much as possible. So if they can keep him from taking an airplane trip over to Europe, they're going to do that, and they've done that. And that's a scary thing. That's a scary situation to be in because Trump could probably get in the middle of this and cool tensions. I'm not saying that Trump's a miracle worker and he's going to stop all this, but he could cool tensions. He could try to communicate between both sides and say, look, let's stand down, let's step back. Russia, pull back. United States, back down with NATO, and Ukraine, be willing to work out something where you're not screaming NATO membership state. And then after we get everything cooled off, everybody's backed off, everybody's standing down, then we can start working out or negotiating some deal with Ukraine and NATO that would appease Russia. there are those that are going to come here and scream at me because I'm siding with Russia. No, I'm not siding with anybody, guys. I'm siding with humanity, the American people, my country, my home, our interest. I'm siding with that. That is the only team I'm picking. That's the only team I'm going to be on, Team America. If Russia and Ukraine want to battle it out for the next 20 years, go for it. I don't care, as long as it doesn't go nuclear. When it goes nuclear, it affects us. Unfortunately, also, we got to get the potato out of the White House because he's literally draining our bank account and giving everything to Ukraine in the name of Ukraine freedom and independence. I'm not going to get in the argument of who Ukraine belongs to. The Iron Curtain fell and Russia lost a lot of territory. But that was their choice, not ours. It had nothing to do with Europe, nothing to do with the United States. When Russia became the state they are now and they left the Soviet Socialist Republic, they let it die. They let it take its final breath and they held its head underwater and drowned it. They chose to let these other states go. When the wall came down in Berlin, Russia's the one that made that call. That was not the United States. That was not Europe. It was not NATO. Russia made the call to knock the wall down and pull back. Let's just back off and bring the Cold War to an end. Granted, Ronald Reagan is the one that helped negotiate that with Gorbachev. But I'm not going to go into a historical lesson here because that's not why we're here tonight. But I just want folks that come here that are ready to scream and yell at me that I'm picking sides, that I'm some kind of Russian deep state sympathizer. I'm not. I'm not a sympathizer for anyone involved in this. I think that if we went in and removed all leadership, including ours, and started fresh, we could put a stop to this real quick. But we got to get rid of the deep state. We got to get rid of the deep state players and the sheep and the puppets and everyone else involved in this, starting in Russia, China, Washington, D.C. Short of that, short of the Russian military turning around and marching to Moscow and ending this, short of our military marching into Washington, D.C. and arresting every one of these sons of bitches, and the Ukrainian military turning around, going to Kiev and removing Zelensky from power, and maybe the rest of Europe falling in line with that and marching into Belgium and Denmark and arresting NATO member leadership, arrest them all. I didn't say charge them. Don't charge them with war crimes yet. It would be a fair court. We would have to prove our case. But we can detain them. We can arrest them. We can shut them down. There are those that believe that if we did that, the entire world would fall apart overnight. Truth is, no, it wouldn't. No, it wouldn't. I think the world would be a lot better off. I think that you get rid of certain leadership in certain countries, we could start sending ships to Sri Lanka full of food and full of diesel and help those people rebuild what they had before that government collapsed. So I'm going to segue into a few other things here. Cartoons. Intrepid mentioned cartoons earlier. For the brothers in here that got PTSD, another brother of mine, a long while back, when I would go to his house every morning, we'd load up gear and get ready to go out. We were doing some carpentry, and then part-time we were doing underwater stuff, diving, construction work. He and I miss the hell out of the family. There's just, you won't find better people in the world than these folks. I would go to his house in the morning and I would, I'd watch Fox News. What's going on in Iraq? What's going on in Afghanistan? What the hell happened overnight that I missed? Because it's daytime over there and it was now becoming my daytime here. I wanted to be caught up on all the latest what's going on. Because back then I was one of those suckers that listened to the media, and for the most part I trusted the information I was getting. Not completely. And then we'd go to work all day and I'd be listening to my heavy metal and my rock and roll and all my other crazy music. And my attitude sucked. I was depressed. I was on the edge. I was pissed off, mad as hell at everything and everybody. And he turned my music off one day, and we wound up listening to classical jazz music on the way to work and on the way back. And in the mornings when I'd go meet up with the guys and get ready to load up gear, he turned the news off and put cartoons on. And I still do some of that even now. I still do some of that. a step away from all the craziness and I go put on some, not necessarily cartoons. Hell, I think cartoons are more violent than we are, but I do step away and put a little different kind of music on, just set the mood. Try to, when I'm starting to get really upset about things, I'll change things up a little bit. And I want to thank my buddy out there for making me watch cartoons and listening to jazz music. Now I actually like some jazz music, but I didn't back then. I couldn't stand it. But I learned to love it. Brought my blood pressure down, calmed me down, helped me mellow out. So advice to those on cartoons, it's not a bad thing to try. I thought it was funny when Intrepid brought that up. So let's cover the sorry guys, my notes are really far away. Women's liberation and liberal deep state. Let me go into that a little bit. Not a lot, because boy God, I don't want to fire the women up in there. But women's liberation is very confusing. And I would say at this point in time, women's liberation has fallen into the left-wing, progressive, liberal, gender fluid, snowflake mindset completely. And why is that? Why would the women's liberation believe in women being liberated, but yet turn around and go into the whole COVID disaster with welcoming arms? Why would they say we have a choice with our bodies, abortion rights and all that? Why would they do this? Why would they believe so strongly in their right to choose and be the one in charge of their choice of their own body, and then turn around and let the government tell them you're going to get a vaccine? Women's liberation movement is very feeling based. It comes and goes in waves. This year and around election time, it becomes very strong, very involved. It's a force to be reckoned with. And then as we get away from election time and we're in the middle of a presidential 2 or 4 year, we're in that 2 and 4 year space in between elections, the women's liberation movement kind of fades off in the distance. It's like they're regrouping before the next election. Then they come on strong again. Women's liberation is a tool used by the deep state, just like a lot of other things, just like the media. They use that as a tool to dumb us down, take and control the sheep, and have the sheep influence us, those of us that are not sheep. Something to pay attention to. Women's liberation is a force to be reckoned with in this country, but they're wrecking themselves. They're hypocritical all the way when it comes to abortion versus COVID. You can't have it both ways. I'm going to jump into another real quick with our Sitrep here on the Chinese police stations in 16 major U.S. cities. Operation Fox Hunt. For those here that didn't catch one of the last Sitreps or haven't kept up with the data that we dumped in the Discord, Operation Fox Hunt. I want you to look that up, and I want you to read between the lines of what Operation Fox Hunt is. And then I would like feedback on that in the Discord of what you guys are able to dig up in the open source intelligence, come up with the information. I know there's quite a few military media, American Military News, and a few other forums out there. And these guys are digging. Military Times is digging real hard in this right now. Why in the hell are there operational Chinese police stations, is what they call them. We call them intelligence stations, signal stations. That's all they are. But these are Chinese nationals that are employed by the Chinese government. What are they doing in our cities? Organized. What it sounds like to me is they have the same privileges as a diplomatic station. And what I mean by that is diplomatic station in any country would be like our embassy. That is sovereign ground where that embassy sits. That is American dirt underneath that embassy. We're guests in those countries that have our embassy, and in trade, we give them ground here to have Chinese soil, Russian, British, any other embassy that comes to the United States. That's a territorial agreement between their nation and ours, that is sovereign land belonging to their nation. And my understanding is they're being granted, they're being allowed to have diplomatic privilege in these Chinese police stations. In other words, that's sovereign Chinese soil, and they're being allowed to operate. These are not Chinese police officers. They might have a few in the mix. These are Chinese military intelligence personnel. We all know that. So that's a concern. That one's going to give me ulcers, guys, and keep me up at night right now, because that's a very dangerous situation. And it's telling what may be being planned. And I'm going to kind of explain, because I've gotten emails and they're like, what's the worst case scenario? What should we expect first? Should we expect mass civil unrest leading to a civil conflict, civil war, Second American Revolution, what? Or should we worry about Russia and Ukraine and nukes? Or should we worry about China and Taiwan nukes? Or should we worry about, North Korea and ICBM test fires over Japan? There's so much going on. Where do we look? What's the thing that we need to be more worried about right now than anything else? What's the bigger threat of all the above and then some? The bigger threat's the economy. Right now in our immediate, I guess I'd say our threat environment, right now here domestically in the United States, we need to be worried about our economy. The American dollar collapsing overnight. That's a very real possibility. England just almost experienced that. We need to be worried about fuel prices. And I was having a discussion with somebody earlier today. Fuel is purchased as futures. So what happens today with fuel is a reflection of the future purchases 6 months and respectively 90 days ago. Airlines, for example, airlines don't buy their fuel for their airports to fuel their planes every day for that day. The fuel that the airport has to supply the aircraft was purchased 6 months or 90 days ago. They're purchasing fuel today for 30 days, 90 days, 60, 90 days, or 6 months down the road from now. That's how refineries sell their fuel. They sell it in bulk. And the reason it's done in bulk that way in futures is to bring down the cost to the purchaser, to the customer, the end user, which would be the airlines. Same with rail, same with most industries are the same way. Some trucking industries, some of the bigger conglomerates, the trucking companies out there will do a 90-day, 30-day purchase of fuel, and they'll buy it in bulk. And they've got cards in their truck drivers' hands when they go to the pumps. That's the price they pay. They get that price, not the price on the pump. The rest of us have to pay whatever the price is that day. So fuel and economy is a concern. Supply chain obviously is a huge concern. We may see ourselves waking up one day and realizing, oh crap, it's time to go to Sam's Club, Walmart, Costco, anywhere else and get our groceries and buy it all. Buy as much as we can afford and do it now. Because in 3 days, there's not going to be any groceries on the shelf. We're not there right now. Otherwise, you guys would be hearing that from me. But we are very close to that. Closer than my comfort level. It's a very scary place to be. Beyond the domestic threats, Antifa's and the BLMs and all the other nonsense that's going on in our country, the feds. The feds would be up there with supply chain, fuel, economy. The feds, what's going on with our agencies? They're not targeting our enemies. They're targeting us. They're working internally. The CIA is not even allowed to work inside the borders of the United States, but that's where they're at and that's where they're working. It's where the deep state's got their black hats heavily and deeply embedded in our everyday lives, whether it be cyber intrusion, surveillance, mass military intelligence surveillance, the balloons in the sky, everything around us is a surveillance tool. And that, unfortunately, is what our agencies and these black hats are focused on, us. They're not focused on China. They're not focused on Russia. They're not focused on domestic terrorism the way they should be by those from other foreign nations, Muslim nations, that want to come here and blow us all to hell and cut our heads off. No, they're worried about domestic terrorism and domestic threats that don't even exist at the level they're trying to sell it to us. When's the last time you guys saw a bunch of skinheads in downtown wherever running around beating up black people? They're out there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying they don't exist. I'm not saying they're out there. They're not out there. They are out there. But a lot like the Patriots, they're laying low right now. They're trying to stay the hell off the radar. These guys are not out there flying their flags and going to protest and being a visual presence right now. That's not what they're doing. And actually, that's a good thing. These guys are hiding. That's good. We want them to just keep on hiding until they get their mind right and get that nonsense out of their head. But the skinheads and the Ku Klux Klan and all these other domestic terrorist threats that are trying to beat everybody, they're not out burning federal buildings down. BLM, hell, just watch the local Portland news in Portland, Oregon, if you want to know what's going on this week. That's the threat. But these people vote a different way. They think a different way. They buy into the woke bullshit. They're all snowflakes. They run around dressing up like commies. They make communist birthday cakes for each other with a big sickle and hammer. And none of these freaking idiots even know what that represents. They have no idea. They don't know what a workers' party is. They just know that they're pissed off at mom, pissed off at dad. They hate their grandparents. They don't like the system. They have to work at Starbucks for minimum freaking wage, and they're mad at the world because it's all our fault. So our federal agencies would be up there with, that's a concern right now for our domestic security. That's a threat. That's in our threat environment right now. And I hate to say that because there are a lot of good men and women out there that go to work every day and catch bad guys and try to keep us safe. But there's a breaking point. We got to figure out where that breaking, they need to figure out where their breaking point is. They need to figure out when it's time to walk away and say, I'm not going to be a part of that. We're seeing a lot of whistleblowers. I'm still crossing my fingers and hoping some of these guys come out this week and go public with these trusted conservative or alternative media sources, and just go to Fox News. Guys, you guys that are working in the agencies, just go to Fox. As much as Fox is going to push back on you, like, we're not going to run you live because we don't know what you might say, or blah, hammer the shit out of them and tell Fox News to pull their head out of their ass and grab some sand and throw it in their shorts if they need to. Fox News has gotten super sucker. And it's almost like even Fox News is pulled back because they're worried that they may become targets. And they very well may become targets. Nothing can be put past this administration. Our United States Marines are being sent to Africa and South Pacific. I'm going to bring that up and cover it real quickly. There is not a military in the world more loyal to the Constitution defending its people as our military. Nowhere in the world where you find a military so dedicated to protecting its country, its borders, its sovereignty, and its people. And at present, roughly 60 plus, some say 68% of our military in a situation of civil unrest, they're going to do what the rest of us are going to do. They're going to run home and take care of their personal business, their families, take care of their wives, their children, their parents, and then they're going to return to the battlefield. And they're not going to stand with a fraudulent presidency in a fraudulent election. They're not going to take orders from people like Milley. They're going to refuse those orders. They're going to stand with the American people. And I strongly believe that the majority of our military would back us up if it came to the point in time where we had to defend this country from our own government. And that is why they're being deployed. They're forward deploying our Marines and our United States Army soldiers and warriors and rangers and everyone else as far away from the American continent as they can right now. They're shipping our guys overseas en masse and replacing them with illegal immigrants that don't speak English, putting them through boot camp with the promise of a citizenship in 2 years if they serve the United States, replacing who we have. This whole we can't recruit, we don't have the numbers, we're not meeting our quotas for recruitment in the military. Take that story with a half grain of salt. It's only half true. We got more United States Army guys over there in Europe right now than we have ever had since World War II. Granted, Ukraine is a concern. Russia is a threat. That's something that we all need to think about. What's the best way to defeat the American people and take our weapons away from us? President Xi in China will not come over here with his army with an armed citizenry. If we're armed, he's not coming. But if he's making backdoor deals with Biden, disarm your citizenry and we'll come and we'll help you overthrow the patriots. We're on board with that. Is that what's being talked about behind closed doors? We don't know. We can't confirm that. But it sure as hell looks like that. Patriots are communicating again. It seems like a lot of the guys that have been in the dark since Biden was inaugurated and Trump left office, where we saw a lot of patriot groups and militia types come out and communicate. You know, they were organizing, they were getting together, they were showing up to protest, showing up to places to protect their cities and their small communities. They disappeared. Poof, they're gone. These guys are laying low because the threat is real. If you're a patriot or a militia member, or even just a member of a small community group that's worried about a natural disaster, or you're a parent that's upset because they're trying to teach your kindergartner about sex, which is not their place, you are now a target. There are a lot of good conservatives out there that are speaking up and fighting back. God bless them. I hope they win this battle. I do. I really hope and pray that they win this fight, because if they don't and they have to break the glass, that's the last resort. And when they break that glass, it's hard to put that genie back in the bottle. If they start gunning down patriots and the feds start going door to door and mass killing people, that's not going to turn out pretty. That's when the glass is broken, folks. And that's where we're headed. I don't have a lot more to cover tonight other than North Korea launched an ICBM over Japan. This is the furthest distance that North Korea has launched. Like Intrepid said earlier, it's not looking like China's gonna tolerate a nuclear launch by North Korea. But we don't know that. But that wouldn't end well for China at all. Trust me. Satellite, telecom, and aggressive activity in our data centers. We're seeing a huge spike in cyber attack activity coming out of Ukraine, coming out of Russia, coming out of China, the obvious culprits. The interesting part is a lot of that activity in Ukraine's not coming out of the Donetsk and the Kherson and the areas that are occupied in Crimea. It's coming out of Ukraine proper, meaning our ally, so to speak. There's a lot of attacks that are coming out of other European countries, not in mass, not what we're seeing coming out of Ukraine, and nothing like what we're seeing out of Russia and China, but it has peaked. You guys are on the internet, you've seen and noticed issues, even with your cell phones. You've seen where there's long pauses or breaks in your cell signal. Those of you with 5G might think that, oh, I've got 5G, I'm good to go. No, you're not. 5G is nothing but a surveillance program. 5G is seeing massive interruptions right now. We're seeing tower interference. Data centers are being pegged nonstop. And eventually that's going to spike even more, and that'll be a prelude to war. Just like the vessel activity around Europe, those dots will turn into arrows. Those of you that are familiar with the maps. When we see that, we see the spike in cyber activity, we'll know, we'll see it coming. More than likely, that'll occur 2 or 3 or 4 days before any kind of military action takes place. When we see that activity spike and all of a sudden our vessels are moving out, the first thing you're going to have to do is not trust the media, because they're going to be given a story, and that's the story they're going to tell. Unfortunately, we can't trust our news broadcasters and our media, newspaper publisher, anybody. We can't trust them anymore. They've sold out. first place you're going to hear about, looks like it's time to go in the bunker, guys, is from the alternative media and all those in the independent intelligence community that work with the open source intelligence sources and that are finding this information. Monkey and the guys at Skyglass, I mean, they're the ones that zeroed down, drilled down, nailed down the fact that a U.S. Air Force P-8 submarine hunter flew over where the attack occurred in the Baltic Sea on the Nord Stream 1 and 2 during the same time period in the middle of the night as the attack occurred, the sabotage occurred. Now, a lot of the rest of us were calling that long before that information was even looked at as seen and available, but we've seen that. Those of you here that are not following Monkey Works need to be following them. Same thing with S2 Underground and a few others out there. Because the intelligence these guys are coming up with is by far none better than you're ever going to hear on mainstream media. And you're getting information from us. It's looking like we're 24, 48, 72 hours ahead of all these breaking news stories. We're knocking it out of the ballpark with the Discord right now. We're putting stuff on there that, granted, I'm going to cover my ass here. It's not classified information. It's already out there. It's already been exposed. A lot of this so-called media is doing what they're calling story verification with their sources, and they're waiting till it's verified before they're putting it out. We're verifying it within minutes, sometimes hours, but within minutes. And the news media could do the same thing, but they're waiting 2 or 3 days. Give you an example. This launch, this North Korea ICBM launch, it was hours before they put it out in the mainstream media, but we were knocking it out of the ballpark hours before that. So if you're not on Discord and following our data and intel drops, get over there and follow us. We covered supply chain and fuel concerns and issues. Right now, domestically, fuel is dropping in price. Nationally, with the exception of a couple of states, the prices are still going up. Those states, you're going to see that on AAA. Those states that are going up are states that lag behind in the national markets. I'm not going to name the states, guys, for operational security, but you can go to your AAA and look at it. It's right there in front of you. The states that are slow, or the states that are going up in price while others are going down, that is a deficit and a lag of time. That is not a projection of what's coming. If you want to watch what fuel is doing up and down, Texas, Oklahoma, North Dakota, those are your primary oil and gas states, and they tend to be almost dead on with the trend in the barrel price, whereas the other couple of states that people are worried, oh my God, the price is going up there, but it's not going up everywhere else. That means it's going to go up everywhere else. That is not true. That's not factual. These other states are just a little slower at the market because they purchase their fuel for smaller populations. So if you live in a state like North Dakota and the population's half, the population of the entire state's half of what some of the larger cities in this country are, they're not using as much fuel as these other states. So they're going to be a little slower. Just keep that in mind. AAA kind of put out some bullshit data on that a while back, and we caught it. And we're like, that's not true. That's not correct. Iran and U.S., Syria, and Iraq. That's a hot zone right now. Ukraine and Russia is obviously the leading hot zone, guys. Pay attention to, give me a second. Let me look at my notes. Pay attention to Pakistan and India. Pakistan versus India. India versus China. China versus Pakistan and India. Pay attention to that one. Greece and Turkey is another hot zone that we need to pay attention to. And, of course, Israel is always going to be a hot zone. In the Western Hemisphere, South and North America, we're seeing Venezuela and Colombia kind of normalize their border conflict right now. So things are cooling down there. The U.S. border in Mexico and the Chinese activity and the cartels and all that's happening right now, that's not cooling off. That's only getting hotter by the minute. So there is a new I would say, a cartel war going on in Mexico between the CNJG, or the New Jalisco Generation Cartel, New Generation Jalisco, and the Sinaloa. They are in a fully engaged conflict right now. They are going back to war. My understanding from open source intelligence, as well as some sources I have down in that part of the world, the Chinese have been doing what they can to broker some kind of truce between these two families, these two cartels, because it interferes with what China's trying to do. But it's not working out. These two cartels absolutely freaking hate each other, and they're going to keep going until they kill each other off. Is China going to step in with a little more force on that front? We don't know. But if they do, then we'll know where we sit as the United States of America. We failed in Mexico to end the drug war. China's going to move in and broker a peace. That can't be good. But we failed. Our leadership completely shit the bed on the cartels and the drug war in Mexico. That's all I got. Intrepid, you got anything else, bud? Oh. You got rude, buddy.
Hey, there we go. I don't know what happened. It just, yeah.
You could hear me though, right?
Yeah, I could see you and hear you the whole time, but for some reason I just fell off.
Okay, good.
No, I mean, as I said earlier, we live in crazy times. I've been chuckling over, that little article out of the Atlantic magazine saying that, yeah, nuclear war would be bad, but it would really be bad for climate change and for women of color and transgendered people. These are our intellectuals. They're crazy.
Yep. I caught that one in Atlanta. The Atlantic is something else, bro. There's something else.
As I said, we live in a cartoon world. Yeah. Don't worry about the nukes. Worry about how it's going to affect climate change. Oh my God. So, no, I can't think of anything. Yeah, again, it's the insanity is quickening. You just got to find your roots. You've got to be aware of your surroundings, aware of what's happening, and build your own little community of people that you trust and that will be there for you and weather the storm. I mean, what else can we do? And don't give up. Don't give in. Just don't be predictable, but passive resistance all the time, because this is just getting out of control right now. And we need to be mentors as well for our children and grandchildren. We need to show them that what it's like to be a man or a woman, what it's like to stand up to all this craziness. Because right now they don't know, and all they see is what the media says and social media and schools, and they're becoming completely brainwashed. As I said the other day, it's, the government and the powers to be are not trying to tell us what to think. They're trying to tell us how to think. Pretty sad commentary. Anyways, that's all I have.
Well, I wasn't going to bring this up, and I've really, really been pushing it to the back burner because, honestly, it's giving me a headache. I am not watching comments. Guys, I'll get to the comments here in a minute, and if anybody's been sharing anything that we need to look at, I'll read that out loud, but I will read it first in case it's one of those comments we don't want to read out loud. But I've been pushing this to the back burner because, in all honesty, guys, it's been giving me and everyone I know that is involved with at every level of the SOF community. That means Special Operations Forces, Marine Recon, SEALs, Green Berets, all those juicy ones, those cool dudes that wear cool sunglasses. Of course, I know the Army guys laugh, but the Navy guys and their cool haircuts that go with their cool sunglasses. I want to bring this up because it's still being pushed out there, and it's actually pissing me off, to be honest with you. But again, for the greater good, it only does us all good to counter the misinformation and to take it head on. Come out and speak on it. Don't just ignore it. Don't let it manifesting itself in the social media world, in the realm of the internet. But it's creating a serious headache, guys. There was a story that broke in Real Raw News, and I don't know if it broke in Real Raw News originally, but the fact that it was even put on Real Raw News makes me sick. Monkey has been telling everybody for a little over almost 2 years now. I've been telling everybody. S2 won't really get into it with his platform, but that team is also one of those teams that we all know what Real Raw News is. Okay, it's not real. They should just take that away from their title, change their website, put Raw News on there. I would change it to pure bullshit. Real Raw News put out a story, and I think it broke originally there, but I don't care to know, to be honest with you, that a bunch of FEMA agents ripped a child out of a woman's arms while they were there under the impression of rescuing people during the flooding in Florida during this past hurricane. And these agents rolled up on what we call a RBT, which is like a Zodiac. And they were ordering this woman to give up all her valuables in the house, that there was a price to pay for rescue. If you want us to rescue you and take you to a shelter, give us your gold, your guns, whatever you have that's of value. And then what I understand is another rubber, a Zodiac craft came around the corner full of a bunch of quote unquote special forces. That those in the community and those that came out of the military know that there's a difference between special forces and special operations groups or teams. Special Forces refers to the United States Army Special Forces Green Berets. Period. End of discussion. Special Forces are Green Berets. That's the United States Army. That's not the SEALs. That's not the combat controllers and the pararescue jumpers in the Air Force. That's not your Marine Force Recon. That's not your MARSOC guys. I don't even know if Space Force has a soft force, but I do know that they have Star Trek. So, and rewind on the VCR. But Special Forces refers to the United States Army Special Operations. The rest of the community are known as Special Operations Forces, or SOF, SOF. The story breaks and goes into how it was the Green Berets, Special Forces, and they actually said that. So they didn't confuse it. They did not confuse it. Came around on a Zodiac and warned these FEMA agents to drop their weapons. I guess a few did and a few didn't, and maybe some fire was exchanged, and ultimately the FEMA people lost the fight. So I reached out to those in the community I know, and I do know some active group guys I've known these guys since before they went in the Army. They're down in Tampa. They're down there at Key West. They're up in Pensacola. Another couple locations down there that are airfields that these guys congregate at. And I've reached out to other people around the country that I know that are retired guys, and they have probably better contacts than I do. These guys can ring up Fort Bragg right now and get answers. Or at least get some truth out of what's going on down there. This incident never occurred. This is not reality. It never happened. There's no dead FEMA agents floating around in the flood in Florida, and there's no Green Berets down there shooting at them. That is incorrect. Anyone that wants to continue believing that story, by all means, we're in America. You have that right. But I've talked to the people that are down there that are actually involved with organizing the rescue effort. Now it's become a post-rescue. Now it's become a recovery effort. But I've talked to some of the folks who are directly involved with operations and command staff down there that are not, they're not even going to give this the time of day. It's not even worth it. When an incident like that does occur, local law enforcement would be obviously the first ones in the know of what's going on, because they're hand in hand partnered with these operators down there, whether they're Green Berets working on a civilian operation. Granted, they can and they will if they're deployed and activated to do that. If they're assigned and given orders to go down there and help the National Guard, they will. Some of them are even in those National Guard units. They're not active with the Green Beret A team out there in Iraq or Afghanistan. They're not here stateside playing the recruiting game or the administration game, the administrative job game. They're actually in these Guard units, and they're still tabbed SF Green Berets, long tabs. They just happen to be part of a National Guard unit because they retired or they discharged out and went back as a National Guardsman. And they are down there. Yes, there are Green Berets or SF types that are down there that are involved in it. But they're partnered with law enforcement. So when you send out 5 guys to the National Guard, you're sending out 1 or 2 deputy sheriffs with them or police officers. They're partnered up. They're a force multiplier. They do that during these operations because the local law enforcement know the area intimately, and that is an intelligence source and a force multiplier for these guys that are not necessarily from that area in that state or another National Guard unit they're helping from another state, and so they need that information. They're not running around down there shooting people off Zodiacs, guys. I know our community here is aware of that, is very knowledgeable when it comes to the special operations force community and how the military works, and during civil situations, how they're mobilized and how their protocols fall into place. We're all familiar with that. But there are people out there that are going to continue pushing this until all of us, our heads explode. If our government and our military and our brothers and sisters are out there doing nefarious shit, we're going to call them on it. We're going to come out and we're going to be the first ones up their rear ends. And we're probably going to be right here talking about it. Some bad shit did happen during Katrina, folks. Some shit that should not have happened. Most of that, we can lay blame on the New Orleans Police Department. And a lot of those people are out of a job or they got punished. But our folks down in Florida during this storm, that did not occur. And I'm saying that with some level of authority because no one really knows except the guys that are down there. But the people I've talked to, I trust. And when they can't tell me things or they can't share things with our community because we're outside the loop and they cannot share, they will not share. They'll flat out just say, hey, look, I'm not going to have that discussion with you. I'm not at liberty to have that conversation or to disclose that information. And they'll come out and they'll tell us. It happened with New York City and this Chinese police department BS. I've reached out to people I know, intimately connected with that department. Guys that I know that are even retired that still have friends and they can call their buddy up and text back and forth. And it's like, no, that's not correct. That's bullshit information. Or yeah, it's something that's sensitive that's being looked at and we're not going to have that conversation. And so it's not just me getting that information. It's a group of guys that can confirm that they're getting the same information. Is that to say that the NYPD is not covering it up? Well, right now the NYPD is being run and operated, managed and commanded by somebody we consider a traitor. Somebody that we consider sold and bought out. Not a good situation to be in. But the information that we're getting is all adding up. And when I look at what I got and the other guys present their packages and say, this is what I got, and we're adding it all up and it's all coming together like nice puzzle pieces and glue, that's what it is until we can prove otherwise. And trust me, we do try to prove verified information as not verified and false, because that's how intelligence works. You take the information and you try to tear it apart even when you know it's true, even when you know it's factual. Even though it's sourced from a legitimate resource, we still rip it apart in every which way we can to look at it. And then we make a decision, is this legit or not? Just like the ICBM launch. A lot of folks thought that ICBM launch out of North Korea did not happen. No, it did happen. It did. It did, in fact, take place. A lot of folks believe that the nuclear train was attacked in Russia. No, it was not. Thank God. Not on behalf of Russia, but on behalf of the citizens of Russia, for humanity's sake. These are innocent bystanders. So I'm going to leave that alone. Guys, I didn't even want to go there. I didn't want to touch on it, but I felt there was a need to discuss it because If you guys come across information that's stupid like that, make sure you call it out. But don't be a dick about it. Try not to be. I know some of the brothers in here are real trigger happy when it comes to, dude, you're a fucking idiot, you know, piss off, whatever. Let's try to approach these people with conviction, with respect. Be calm, be gentle, and help educate them. Help them stop being clouded with the massive amount of bullshit they're being fed, or just information in general. There is a psyop going on in this country right now and all around the world, and it's called dis and misinformation. And there is a difference in the two. Intentional and unintentional information feeds, and a lot of that is influenced by those in power. So we need to be very careful. Never trust, but still verify. That's my motto. People say trust and verify. I don't trust anything. Everything is complete horseshit until I prove otherwise. But then when I prove it and I'm able to zero in on that data and go, oh, here's the facts. Give you an example in the Nord Stream pipeline. The facts are there was one of our aircraft that flew over from the United States, went and did a refuel in Germany and turned around and went out to sea, flew right over the target area, and then flew back to the States. That's a long, long flight. Those aircraft can make those flights, yes. They do often. But that crew, that operational crew on that aircraft, they put some hours in that day. A lot of hours. And usually you don't see that unless it's an operation. Why did they mask the flight? That's another fact that can be proven. The hex code does not exist in the database. Monkey proved it. We looked at it. There's no hex code there. Guys, but our aircraft was there. Does that mean that that aircraft, in fact, dropped munitions on that pipeline and attacked it? No. Because we can't prove that. And so we're not going to tell you that's what happened because we don't know. We're in the dark on that still. Everybody's going to be in the dark on that until the asshole, unwiped ass in the White House admits that he's the one that ordered it. Don't worry. This guy likes to talk. He loves to hear his own voice. He'll probably slip up, have a moment of a lapse of reason. Those that listen to Pink Floyd know what I'm talking about. Yeah, hopefully Biden slips and screws the pooch on that, if anything, so we know what we're dealing with. At the same time, I hope he doesn't, because God knows how Russia's going to react to it. So, all right, folks, that's all I've got. Intrepid, you're going to get the final word tonight, brother.
No, I agree. It's almost 2 hours. I think it's time to let people go to bed, like me.
Yeah, well, this is a recorded show.
Oh,
so
okay.
Those that missed it are going to be able to catch it on YouTube. And
sounds like new technology to me, but no, use your head, be vigilant, keep your eyes open, help each other, and live. Don't get caught up in the hysteria and madness that is our politics and our media right now. It'll drive you crazy, and you won't be any farther ahead tomorrow than you are today. So that's pretty much all I have to say.
Those of you that are Christians out there like us, grab your sword, the Holy Bible. Those that are not Christian, find that higher power that you believe in. I don't care if you're Buddhist or you're Muslim or I don't care what you are. Put your faith and trust into something greater than yourself. This is a battle between good and evil, like Intrepid keeps reiterating to all of us to remind us that this is bigger than any of us, and none of us have any power or control over any of this. All we can do is either be in the way and be a liability, or be an asset and be ahead of this as much as possible and try to take care of that circle that all of us are in. My guys, I'm going to throw it out there on the Sitrep. It's time to get your asses mobilized and get back to, get to my area of operations, my AO. I already put the message out privately, but I'm going to go ahead and do it here. We put out the Sitrep the other night and told people it's time to start thinking about getting to the box. And I'll bring that map up again on Thursday night. You guys are going to have Just to sit rep with me, it sounds like on Thursday. I think Intrepid is going to be buzzing around the sky somewhere. So I will bring the maps up and we will go into depth on Thursday night or Thursday evening with the map and the location and the information and data behind that. And as far as my team goes, guys, it's time to start getting your bags and your kids and wives packed up and start making the move. And I really, 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 really I prayed a lot on not making that call. We all knew that call was going to happen eventually. And I know a lot of you guys are fighting the economy same as the rest of us. So it's making a move is a huge life-changing decision. But we do have facilitation here where I'm at. And I just want everybody to know that when you get here, we will work as a team as we always have, brothers. And yeah, it's time to get the wheels turning, so to speak. I'm not going to give you a timeline. I didn't in private, and I'm not going to do that now. And I actually got to make some phone calls before I can even go to bed tonight. I'm not going to give you anybody a timeline, but it could be anywhere between now and Russia. So there's your timeline. And the financial, real quick, Intrepid, on the financial intelligence side of this, what are we looking at with pulling money out of the banks, brother? Because I know a lot of people right now, just in the last few days, are screaming panic all over the social media. So what do you think, man?
Well, I think if you have dollars, that's probably better than other currencies right now. I wouldn't be necessarily putting it into housing or, at this point, I'd say forget about wealth. Just get what you need. Have some money that you can use for bartering. If the system implodes, everything that you think that you have is going to be worthless anyways. So,
this watch around my neck, this watch right here is bartering material. The necklace around my neck is bartering material.
Well,
points,
knowledge,
anything, coffee and sugar.
Knowledge is also bartering material.
Yes,
yeah,
it is.
If you could get a few $100s out of the bank for things, that'd be great. But I'm not a big investment guru. I know people make a lot of money off panic. But you look at what's happening around the world. The Chinese economy is crashing. The German economy is crashing. The Bank of England just about went under. Now it's Deutsche Bank and Credit Suisse that are, on shaky grounds. It's all coming crashing down. And I think that the powers to be knew that a while ago, and they're getting as much as they possibly can before it does come crashing down. And when it does, they're sure not going to tell us. Money that you have in the bank, they don't have bailouts anymore. They have bail-ins. That's an interesting phenomenon that came about recently. So yeah, have some cash, I guess, in case you need to get things. But right now, it's time to go get things: water, food, supplies, that kind of stuff.
Looks like my Malraptor wanted to jump up and say hi to everybody.
Oh, that's all right.
Every move you make right now and everything you plan is a strategic move and a critical move at this point. Pulling your money out of the bank is a decision you're going to ultimately have to make. Based on what I know, to follow up with what Intrepid just said, have currency, whether it be cash, dollar, coin, copy. You'd be surprised how many people are going to be willing to copy when things go bad. Guys, have that currency. Start investing it in your planning, in your preparation. You want to go out and invest it in a golf course? Go for it. Good luck with that. So that's all I'm going to say. Keep some cash out of the bank. Put the cash in the bank. This is kind of what we've all done for a long time now. Those of us that are kind of watching and paying attention. Put the money in the bank that you need to keep in the bank to operate your business or to pay your bills. Don't keep more money in the bank more than that. Make sure you cover your bills. Make sure you cover your overhead and costs for running your businesses. Keep the rest tucked away. And that we don't know how this plays out. Cash could be still worth something when everything flips over, or cash may instantly become useless. We don't know. But looking at these other countries like Sri Lanka, cash in Sri Lanka didn't mean anything the day after the president bailed out, and they lost their. They don't have a government. Sri Lanka right now is a failed state. Slovakia is about to become a failed state. When we say, guys, that there's no cops and police and fire and government officials, and basically there's no rule of law. It's gone. You are on your own. There's no help coming. So I'm going to leave it at that. It's a long night. It's been a long week so far. It's only Tuesday, but we're going to be all right.
Yeah, it's only Tuesday. Oh, jeez. Yeah.
Yep, let's call it, man. God bless everybody. Just Christ watch us in our daily lives, and protect our children, our wives, our mothers, our mistresses. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm in a really sour, pissy mood tonight, guys, so bear with me here. Nothing to do with anything here. It's just really, it's a conflicting time. It's almost like when you want to communicate, but you can't. It's almost when you got clarity, and then suddenly it becomes confusion. You're staring at 5-6 screens, and one thing's buzzing and the other one starts buzzing, and it's overwhelming. I just took a few days off this past weekend because I had to step away, and I want you all to do that too when you need to. Step away. Go recollect and gather your thoughts, and pick up the Bible and read the hell out of it, and put your faith in the Lord, guys, because this is a battle of all battles. I believe that we are in the fight of our lives. So until we're not. And you have nothing to fear from death. One lesson I've learned in life. When death comes, it comes. Just pray it's over quickly, and you move on. You go to the next level. Don't be afraid of it. Don't fear it. And like Suspicious Observer says every day, no fear. I like that, because fear will keep you alive in the moment. But if you're not in the moment, fear is only going to drag you down and kill your energy. It's really going to destroy your morale. So control your fear, but use it as a tool. It's ever present in our lives.
Yeah.
But don't let it overwhelm you. Be strong in your faith, and be strong in yourself. Have confidence in your abilities and skills. And if you don't have confidence in your abilities and skills, go out and find those that can help you with that. As crazy as the world is, there's still a lot of good people out there.
All right. Well, Thursday, huh?
Thursday night, brother. If you're up doing loopy loops, we got it covered, brother.
I'll let you know. Right now, I'm scheduled to do a night flight someplace, so we'll figure it out.
Cool. Well, be
All
safe
right.
doing it.
I will. Thank you.
Hey, try to get one up. Try to get a flight up to my neck of the woods, will you?
Yeah, we could do that.
Even if I only get to see you for 5 minutes.
I'm certainly in the box. I'm just a few hundred miles south of where you're at, so.
Roger that.
Yep.
All right, guys. God bless. TCG Global and American Legionary ending our broadcast. We're out.
All right. Have a good night.
Good night, brother.